we do welcome those of you joining us here in Manhattan, Kansas for Ole Miss and Kansas State as the Big 12 SEC Challenge continues to travel against the Wildcats. And for the first time, we see Marshall Henderson. You hear some of the crowd reaction. Marshall, who scored better than 20 points a game last year, one of the dynamic figures in college hoops. You can tell he's ready to go. He checks in. This year he's been coming off the bench for Ole Miss.
And for him, hearing the boos, he knows it's all about him and not about the Rebels. They're not booing the Rebels team. But he feeds off that stuff. That's what gets him going and into a basketball game.
Dave Fleming, Miles Simon here in Manhattan. Henderson, a touch, a shot, no good. And not a surprise.
Not a surprise at all. Andy Kennedy told us before the game that as soon as he touches it the first time, he's going to shoot it. But Andy Kennedy's okay with that. And those were two good shots. And those are shots Marshall Henderson can knock down, whether he's been on the bench 15 minutes or 2 minutes.
Well, you don't want to miss him when he's in the game, that's for sure. And you can't miss him when he's on the court. He'd been out there for 20 seconds. He'd already taken 2 threes.
I mean, he's a record setter. 138 made threes in the SEC, an NCAA record last year in three-pointers attempted 394. He's going to get his shots. He's going to get his attempts. He's not really worried about coming off the bench. He actually is really worried about helping his team win.
He certainly was very positive when we talked to him before the game. Seemed excited about this matchup. Got the new haircut to get ready for the television coverage tonight. Dangerous pass. Summers with the dribble attack, missed from short range. Offensive putback is good for Aaron Jones.
And here's where Ole Miss can be effective. They have a big lineup in the game with Summers at 6'3", Marshall Henderson at 6'2" at the guard spots, and then you bring in Anthony Perez at 6'9" to play the 3.
So Ole Miss, after some struggles offensively early, Henderson in the game, they're getting into it. They lead 7-6. And welcome back here to Manhattan, Kansas. It's Jimmy V Week for Cancer Research here on ESPN as we continue our commitment to the V Foundation and Jim Valvano's dream to defeat cancer. Our matchup in this Big 12 SEC Challenge, Ole Miss on the road with an early 7-6 lead over the Kansas State Wildcats. Dave Fleming alongside Miles Simon. Good crowd, not quite filled, but it's been very loud in the early minutes. Kansas State talking a lot about playing here at home, trying to use their home court advantage and get what would be a big win for this Wildcats team. Miles mentioned it a moment ago, but no Rodney Magruder, no Angel Rodriguez, no Jordan Enriquez. It's sort of a rebuilding Kansas State team despite some of the experience they have, including Will Spradling, the senior.
Well, one thing, they're going to get better in a couple weeks from now when freshman Javon Thomas, who's a post-grad young man, is a partial qualifier, hasn't been able to practice or work out with the team, but on December 21st, once this semester ends, Javon Thomas is a point guard that was the MVP of the National High School Invitational. They're really high on. He'll be a game changer to allow Spradling to move off of the basketball to his natural two-guard position.
Shot clock winding down against this zone look, and they need to shoot. Spradling finally does, and hits a 3.
Spradling struggled with the three-point shot early in this season, but last 3 games, 5 for 10. That's a good start for him to knock that one down.
Marshall Henderson gives the ball up. Anthony Perez off the bench for Ole Miss, so Sebastian Saiz. That was Jones, missed the jumper. Aaron Jones has some range, but that's not usually his shot. There's a foul, and the shot is good.
And this is a great start here for K-State as Nigel Johnson able to put his body into the Ole Miss defender, get the contact, hang in the air, and now go to the line to complete the three-point play.
Another freshman from Ashburn, Virginia, Nigel Johnson, who originally committed to George Washington and then played so well. Some BCS conference-type schools started to step in and recruit Johnson. He ended up here in Manhattan. Three-point play for Nigel Johnson.
And there are 3 freshmen that are getting the time. Marcus Foster, we've talked about, as the leading scorer. Wesley Owundu, 6'7", 195. And Nigel Johnson. These guys are building blocks for the future for here in Kansas, for Kansas State.
You see the official going to the monitor here. Just a clock issue. When was the whistle blown?
Looks like about 14:35.
Yeah, you see some seconds tick off the clock. In fact, even more than that. So they got to put a good bit of time back on the clock. And they will do that. So they officially determined 14:34 is when the foul was called.
And this is a great start for Kansas State, a team that has struggled to score the basketball. To get 12 points here in the first 5.5 minutes to get off this type of start bodes well for K-State for the rest of the game.
Now, offense has not been easy for the Wildcats. Their defense has been excellent. Jarvis Summers will bring the ball up this time. So far this year, he, not Marshall Henderson, has been the leading scorer for Ole Miss. Summers was fouled. The whistle, you could hardly hear the whistle. Summers is going to shoot free throws. There is Marshall Henderson. At shoot around, he didn't look like that.
No, he had long hair at the shoot around today, and before the game tonight, I noticed he cut himself up, had a nice haircut, and if you see the little zigzags on the side of his head, he said those are lightning bolts because his nickname is the Native Flash. His grandfather is Native American, and he feels he's a quick player, has a quick release on his shot. So those are the little lightning bolts on the side, and he said he had to give himself a new cut because of the national TV exposure tonight.
Okay, Marshall, thanks for the new look on our behalf. Marshall Henderson, who comes off the bench these days. Ole Miss finally hit a free throw. They'd missed their first 3 as a team. 4-point lead for Kansas State. Wildcats have the ball and some pressure from the Rebels. Wildcats break it fairly easily. Owundu missed the layup after doing everything else right.
But they attacked that perfectly. They had the 2-on-1 break. Owundu just couldn't finish.
Ladarius White, nice dump down to DeMarco Cox.
And here's how Ole Miss wants to play. They want to speed you up tempo, get the stops on the defensive end, and then attack.
Nearly a steal. Owundu. Spradling shoots the 3. Hits another one.
Excellent pass by Owundu, delivering that pass on time and on target. And Will Spradling right in rhythm.
He's made both of his attempts from the outside. Now a whistle away from the ball and a foul against Kansas State. That's going against Spradling. And I think that's number 2 against Will Spradling. So that's some early foul trouble for an important Wildcats player.
Marshall Henderson draws so much attention, but he really moves well without the ball. Look at the setup. He walks his man down, fakes one way, and then the body contact. You cannot impede that guy coming off those screens.
Well, Spradling comes out of the game with the 2 fouls. Here's Millinghouse. The defense just left him wide open.
And partially that was because Marshall Henderson was coming out on that ball side. Both of the ball side defenders were going out to help on Henderson, leaving the lane wide open.
Shane Southwell, good catch. Well, Nigel Johnson looks to Bruce Weber on the bench, gets a play call. 3-point lead for Kansas State. Foster, the freshman, off on the 3. And the rebound tracked down by Nigel Johnson. But he missed, and Cox grabs it for Ole Miss. Millinghouse so fast in the open court, and he missed the layup.
They're getting the shots they want, stops on defensive end, and then able to get out and get point-blank looks.
I think that's at least 3 layups that Ole Miss has missed here in the first 7+ minutes of this game. Marcus Foster, freshman from Texas, strong kid, made a real impact early on. He gets fouled by White. So foul against Ole Miss. We get a chance to remind you tomorrow, speaking of freshmen, some of the most talented in the country, headlining the Big 12 SEC Challenge on ESPN. Julius Randle in Kentucky, 3rd-ranked team of the country, against Baylor. That's 10 Eastern tomorrow on ESPN, also live on Watch ESPN.
What a battle of the front courts there. Julius Randle, Willie Cauley-Stein against Corey Jefferson and Isaiah Austin. Really looking forward to those games.
Yeah, that'll be fascinating to watch. Another shot block for Aaron Jones. That's his 3rd of the first half. White on the move. Good little pass fake and scores.
Nice job by Scoop White, but again, the defensive end, the pressure, the block shots. Ole Miss just being more active.
Owundu pull up. They left him open, let him shoot. He missed. And the rebound tapped out to Cox. Marshall Henderson. Will he shoot it in transition? Yes, he will. Wild shot, no good.
Now that was a bad shot. Contested, 2 guys on him. He's looking for a foul there, but that was a poor shot selection there by Henderson.
Windu, the freshman for K-State, already was 6 rebounds. He's a good rebounder. Here's a 3 right side, no good. Offensive rebound, and then lost right out of bounds by DJ Johnson, who's doing some good things since coming off the bench. Marshall Henderson may be headed back to the bench. His Ole Miss Rebels down by 1. $1 you give goes straight to cancer research. www.jimmyv.org. You can also call 1-800-4JIMMY-V to donate. We encourage you to do so.
Dave, and I think he hits it right on the head that cancer has affected someone you know, or in each way. For me personally, I lost my grandmother to cancer in 2008 to lung cancer. My father has beaten colon cancer, and he's in the process of trying to beat prostate cancer right now. So it's affected me in a deep way. We need to continue to raise the funds and the money to try to beat this horrible disease.
And the Jimmy V Foundation has done such great work to do just that. This is the Big 12 SEC Challenge. Ole Miss on the road. Marshall Henderson to the bench. Derek Millinghouse with the ball for the Rebels. And he had it stripped away by Nigel Johnson, who has it poked away from behind himself, and then beautifully saved in bounds, but Ole Miss can't quite grab it. Martavius Newby did a nice job there.
Great hustle by Newby, just with the back tap. Look, he comes from way behind, number 1 there, and then he does a perfect job of the inside hand back tap, almost able to save that basketball and save the possession for the Rebels.
A good example of why a lot of people around Ole Miss say he'd be a good football player. He's got some closing speed.
Andy Kennedy said he might tell that young man to go and play next year if he can probably make some money in the NFL.
Out of bounds, and Kansas State turns the ball over. Well, part of this challenge so far, Big 12 3 wins, SEC 2 wins. It's been competitive. We still have a lot of basketball to go. Summers on the attack. Gibson cuts him off.
Summers is a different player than he was last year. Much more aggressive on the offensive end. And part of that is he's playing off the ball more with Millinghouse at the point.
Nice little behind the back pass. He got to look for his teammate, but Jones missed the shot. And Summers gave him a high five. Said, that's okay, good shot.
I like what Ole Miss does here with the pressure, because they pressure up, now they're dropping back, but it's led to turnovers and then also block shots that's allowed Ole Miss to get out in transition.
Nigel Johnson playing well off the bench for K-State. Omari Lawrence with the ball. Nino Williams also in the game. That's Williams, and he missed the jumper. Long rebound. Who's going to get it? Out of bounds and off of K-State.
The guy that hasn't got a touch yet is Thomas Gibson for Kansas State. They need to look down low, let him try to go to work. Let him play one-on-one. He's been playing some of his best basketball. 17 points per game and 7 rebounds over his last 3.
Number 42, big guy down low for the Wildcats. Cox set a little screen. Here's Newby, baseline, just some strength, but he knocked the defender down. It's an offensive foul. Gibson took the charge.
And that's not really Newby's game. Not much of a score. He tries to drive baseline. Gibson does a great job of sliding over, getting in legal guarding position, and able to take the charge right to his chest.
Well, there is Gibson. You see the numbers in the last 3 games. He was not healthy early in the year. Had a concussion. And since coming back and getting into the flow, Gibson's been really good.
But right now with this lineup for K-State, the only scorers that are on the floor are Marcus Foster and Thomas Gibson. Gibson, I know he's a low down low and he's going against Cox, but they got to get him a touch. And Nino Williams has a chance to deliver it.
And just couldn't get it there.
He needs to take up a little bit of the slack because Perez is backing off him. I'm sorry, Jones was backing off him there to give him the jump shot. You got to take up the little bit of the slack with one dribble and then enter the pass.
We'll see if they can get him a touch down low. A long way from the basket right now. He'll set a screen. They do get him the ball, but not where he's most comfortable. Shot clock winding down. Foster, tough pass. And it's on the floor. A whistle, and they're calling a foul against Gibson.
I thought that was going to be a good hustle play there by Gibson. I don't know how much contact he made with Newby, but Gibson selling out his body there. and no contact at all. Gibson got all ball, and Newby just hurdled him.
And the fans see the replay. They're not happy about the whistle. For K-State, it cost their big man a foul, which is bad news. The good news is it probably would have been a layup for Ole Miss.
But now if I'm Ole Miss, maybe I try to get DeMarco Cox something on the block, see if I can draw that second foul on Gibson. Not much backup post play for Bruce Weber and the Wildcats.
White in the lane. Pretty good move and hits the shot.
Scoop White, he's just been inconsistent, but he's one of the most talented players on this Rebels roster.
And they're waiting for him to emerge. They think he can. Foster into the lane. Foster, good move.
Foster's going to be a big-time scorer in this league. In high school, at Hershey High School in Wichita Falls, nearly 2,400 points in his career.
Has gotten in better shape, and I think you're right. He's going to be a big-time player in Manhattan. White, tough shot. Here comes Johnson. Johnson, 1-on-3, scores anyway.
Dave, what usually happens when you take a bad shot on one end, it usually leads to an easy bucket on the other end.
It certainly did there. There's a foul on the floor, and Bruce Weber is going nuts. This player a little more stoic about the whistle.
And here you see just a one-on-one play, a contested shot, long rebound, and no one able to stop the basketball. Nigel Johnson with the beautiful finish at the other end.
Well, Ole Miss making some substitutions. Fans continue to be unhappy, including Marshall Henderson back in the game. And they tried to get him a touch. Southwell knocked it out of bounds.
Millinghouse can't be so blinded there, only looking for Henderson because Southwell helped. Aaron Jones was wide open on the slip. But watch this matchup. The freshman Marcus Foster having to guard Henderson, straddling with the 2 fouls. Bruce Weber did not want to put the freshman on Henderson for too long.
How about Henderson in and out? And a whistle and a foul against K-State. Well, there's nobody in college basketball who takes the kind of shots that Marshall Henderson does.
And here he is again, moving without the basketball. That's great setup by a shooting guard. And a beautiful quick release. That ball goes in and out. Good contest by the freshman Foster.
And he does make a lot of those. It's part of the reason why he's one of the top scorers in college hoops, was last year.
And you know what? His teammates, they don't look at him sideways. They know that he can make those shots. They believe in Marshall Henderson, that he helps the team win. So they'll live with some of those shots that he takes.
Very sloppy ball handling by K-State. Millinghouse finds Henderson. This time he attacks the basket. There's his first one of the game.
And he's not just a three-point shooter. Dave, you and I were talking about shoot-around, talking about him at shoot-around. He shot a ton of free throws last year. 166 made. He was making 5 per game. He will attack the basket.
Big part of his offensive game. Wundu left wide open. Long rebound tapped out to Johnson. And the quick look to Gibson with the left hand. Here's Marshall Henderson. Foster rides him with the hip and fouls him. And again, Kansas State is going nuts over the whistle, but I think that was a foul.
He bodied him up after he put the ball on the floor. And Marshall Henderson, always on attack mode, looking to score. Getting the bucket for the Ole Miss Rebels, and then on the other end, the big fella, Thomas Gibson, with the soft touch. K-State up.
The first game without Marshall Henderson. He will serve the last 2 games of that 3-game suspension in league play, so he'll miss a matchup with Auburn and one with Mississippi State. But Marshall Henderson, since the suspension, has done everything right according to his coach, Andy Kennedy. He's coming off the bench this year. In the last moment of this game, he got his first basket of the night, and he and Ole Miss with the ball down 3.
Dave, I talked to him before the game today, and I asked him, what did the suspension do to him? And he said the biggest thing it did, he said it really humbled him. He said he's never been just this cocky guy in his career or growing up, but he said he fed into all the hype last year. And he was saying things that he shouldn't have said on Twitter or whatever it may have been. But he said it's really humbled him, brought him back down to earth, the suspension. And he said he's really just going to cherish his time as the lone senior on this team and help this team win as many ball games as possible.
Well, he had a good look on that last possession, missed the shot. He just 1 of 6 from the field so far in this one. The kid who started his career in Utah, grew up in Texas, played his high school hoops there, went to Utah, went to Texas Tech, went to junior college, ended up finally at Ole Miss where he has blossomed. Shane Southwell makes the front end of the 1-and-1.
And I think Andy Kennedy gets a lot of credit. I think he's done an excellent job of letting him be the free spirit that he is, but also reining him in at times. You know, the suspension, the Twitter ban. I asked Andy Kennedy, the Twitter ban because of Marshall Henderson. He said, yeah, in some ways it is. They have a team Twitter ban. No one's on it during this season. But he says it's helping Marshall Henderson to focus on what he needs to do on a daily basis now because Henderson was spending too much time on there.
Here's Summers, had his shot blocked by Southwell. Jones comes away with it, though. Then an offensive foul.
I love it. The big fella now has taken 2 charges here in the first half, and that one's a more dangerous one because he already has 1 personal foul.
Thomas Gibson, nice defensive play.
And here's the block. Southwell with the long arms. They can't recover, but Thomas Gibson just waiting there in the help side, outside of the restricted area, and there in plenty of time to take the charge.
So Aaron Jones with the foul. He goes back to the bench. Kansas State with the ball up by 5. Matches their biggest lead of this first half. There's still 6.5 to go. Nigel Johnson.
They like to play a lot of zone with Henderson in the game. He's a very average defender, hard for him to keep guys in front.
Shot clock winding down, and that was a travel. Marcus Foster turns it over. Well, college football presented by Kay Jewelers on Saturday on ABC. We want to remind you about that when we get a chance. Meanwhile, though, Ole Miss with the ball. Derek Millinghouse. There's Summers. Matched up with the bigger Southwell. That's a tough matchup. Perez hangs in the air and scores. Anthony Perez, a sophomore native of Venezuela.
This is a young man that Coach Andy Kennedy very high on. Just a sophomore. Versatile, can play 2 different positions. A face-up 4 and also play some 3.
Yeah, will shoot from the outside. Also can put the ball on the floor. Foster. He turned it over again. This time it was a double dribble. Okay, we were telling you about college football presented by Kay Jewelers. Noon Saturday. It is Bedlam. Oklahoma State, a huge game with BCS implications. I saw this week where the Sooners were not happy. Folks were talking about them playing spoiler. Oklahoma, they don't want to be spoilers in Norman.
And boy, did Oklahoma State really look good in dismantling a top 5 Baylor team at the time.
Henderson traveled himself. It's been a tough first half for Marshall Henderson. I think you can tell he's a little frustrated.
The missed shots, the turnover, it's not going to faze him too much. Next time he's open, he'll be ready to shoot that basketball, and he believes that everyone's going to go in.
That is true. He has a very short memory.
And you have to, as a scorer. This is a guy that averaged 20 a game last season.
Had some monster performances in big games, too. Good pass, and the extra pass down low. Gibson lost it on the way up. K-State plays a little volleyball and keeps possession. The shot clock did not reset. It's down to 6. The 3 is too strong, and Perez grabs a rebound. Millinghouse does push it up the floor so quickly. 3 off the mark. For Ole Miss, a team that likes to score, likes to run. This game not quite the style that they'd like to play it.
But I think they've missed so many easy opportunities early. Those missed layups can speed up that game and make Kansas State play a little bit faster because it would have allowed them to set up their press more. But they've missed some chippies early on.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. It would be a different story had those shots gone in. Southwell wide open, in and out. And Awundu grabbed the rim to try to follow it. Now they get a chance to run. Millinghouse to Summers. Good.
Really poor defensive balance there by K-State.
So the Wildcats call a timeout. This is a 1-point game. K-State leads 23-22. His first ever Big 12 SEC challenge. You see the games that have already been played and the games still to come. Some really nice matchups on that schedule upcoming.
Yeah, really, I like that Kansas-Florida matchup. Even though Florida's banged up, they just lost on a buzzer beater by Shabazz Napier at UConn. But Kansas without Casey Hill and Scotty Wilbekin both out with injuries. You know, how will they be able to, Florida without those guys, how are they going to match up with the Kansas Jayhawks?
Yeah, an opportunity in what has been a tough start for the Gators because of what you're talking about. Opportunity to get what would be a huge win. And Kansas has been uneven with all the expectations.
Got upset by Villanova at the Battle for Atlantis. UTEP took them down to the wire in the third place game.
You know, Bramlage would be rocking this year when the Wildcats host the Jayhawks. Gibson created a little room with the shoulder and knocked down the shot. Dangerous pass. Summers snatches it out of the air. Henderson trying to get going on the offensive end. Had his shot blocked, but he was fouled from behind. I think the defender got a piece of the hand or the wrist. That sends us to another timeout. The Wildcats lead by 3.
Adnan Burke in our college basketball studios coming up from the Land Rover halftime report. We will count down to the showdown, Kentucky and Baylor, and what to look out for. Plus, Sean's sharpshooters, who are the best from the land beyond. Yes, Sean Farnham going through Dave Fleming withdrawal. Don't know what we can do about this. Glenn, back to you.
It happens, Adnan. Well, my question is Marshall Henderson going to be on that list?
He should be. He's one of the best shooters in the country. I know he's ice cold in the first half here tonight, but hopefully if he can drop a couple of these free throws through, sometimes a great scorer or shooter just needs to see that ball go through the hoop.
We miss Mr. Farnham too. And Henderson misses the free throw, and that's very unusual. And that's what you and I were talking about earlier. He does do a good job of getting to the line, and he makes almost all of his free throws typically. You can tell he's just a little bit out of whack. Makes 1 of 2. They need him. Ole Miss puts some pressure on.
And if I'm Kansas State on this possession, I want to go right back to Thomas Gibson. He scored in the long post on the last possession. Let's give him the basketball again.
Johnson's runner rejected. That was Summers who came from behind. 6'3", and the guard blocked the shot, but he blocked it out of bounds. Andy Kennedy was not happy with Sebastian Saiz, his 6'9" freshman. That's the 4th block for Ole Miss. They average better than 8 per game as a team. One of the best shot blocking teams in the country. Southwell, shot clock winding down. Owundu, they got to get one off. They do. That one way too strong. And the rebound caroms over to Marshall Henderson. Final 2.5 minutes of the first half. Good game. Big 12 SEC challenge. Summers right to the basket.
Summers is a completely different player. I covered Ole Miss about 5 or 6 times last year, but he's just more aggressive, his confidence high, and that's something that Coach Andy Kennedy instilled in him in the offseason, that they wanted him to be more aggressive and much more a scorer than a playmaker this year.
Freshman Marcus Foster, he's a scorer.
He's smooth. I really like this game. 6 straight games in double figures. Coach Weber knew that he would have an impact from day one, just in their workouts and their pickup games. Knew he would be a key cog.
Perez traveled to the big man, trying to put it on the floor, commits a turnover. Turnovers have been a theme of this first half. Kansas State, a few more than Ole Miss, but Ole Miss now 5 turnovers. Wildcats have 9.
And right now, Kennedy just trying to survive with Cox and Jones, both on the bench with 2 fouls.
Yep. So the young kids for Ole Miss underneath are giving Andy Kennedy some minutes. His own defense is giving the Wildcats problems. Foster through the defense, dumped it down. Owundu couldn't handle the pass, but he draws the foul.
I like what Foster did right there, splitting the two Ole Miss defenders and then dropping that basketball off to his freshman partner. This is how you attack a zone. A lot of freshmen don't know what to do. Usually want to hang out on perimeter, shoot three, splits with the low dribble, the nice pass. So one dude needs to gather that basketball and go up and take it up strong.
Wesley Owundu, freshman from Houston. 2 shots, makes the first.
Owundu's already had a double-double in his first game. First game as a Wildcat, had 14 and 10.
Makes them both. Wildcats have used the free throw line to help build this lead. Timeout Ole Miss. Andy Kennedy will use his first timeout. Try to set up the final minute and 10 seconds. Well, November has turned to December here in college hoops, so the season is well underway. But Miles, give us your notes from the first month or so of the college hoop season.
Well, North Carolina came in with a lot of hype, and we know P.J. Harrison, Leslie McDonald, 2 of their better players, are suspended. But they've been just so up and down, very inconsistent with the losses to Belmont and then on the road to UAB. But so impressive in beating Louisville and Michigan State. And then we talk about the fabulous 4 freshmen. But what about these 4 guys? Marcus Smart, Doug McDermott, Russ Smith, Shabazz Napier, all putting up huge numbers. Shabazz Napier, 60% from the 3. Those guys will be in the Player of the Year race when it's all said and done. And then we look at Dayton and Villanova, very successful. Dayton did a great job out in the Maui Classic, and Villanova, we know they pulled off the upsets against Kansas and Iowa in the battle for Atlantis.
Well, Ole Miss, I think they would like to enter that conversation, surprise teams at some point. They're still undefeated, looking for a signature kind of win. I don't know for sure if this would qualify, but Henderson out of the timeout, air ball. Wow. This is one of the worst halves we've seen from Marshall Henderson in his Ole Miss career. Southwell, runner, no good. Rebound and a good one, Saiz.
Southwell passed up a good shot to take a tougher shot.
Summers got fouled in transition. And you got to call that. That's the freedom of movement stuff that the officials are supposed to be emphasizing this year.
And that's an excellent job by Summers, just putting the pressure on the defense as Marshall Henderson comes out of the game. He'll need to regroup in the locker room at halftime, and I'm sure he'll be ready to go in the second half. But Jarvis Summers, his aggressiveness, he deferred to others a ton last year. But now he feels it's kind of his team. He's starting. Henderson's coming off the bench, so he has to be aggressive at the start of games for the Rebels to stay competitive.
Good free throw shooter, right around 75% for the year, Summers.
Andy Kennedy described him as their best defender and his best leader.
They did draw that foul so quickly, it almost acts like a 2-for-1. Ole Miss can play defense here down 2. And still, as long as they get a rebound, get the ball back. Johnson against the zone. Gibson wasn't really looking to shoot.
I think that was a smart play by Gibson. The freshman backcourt got kind of sped up there, and Gibson knows they wanted to run just a little bit more clock.
Foster pull up a long 2. He's a good player.
Really good player. Lost a lot of weight after his senior year of high school, trimmed his body, got more muscular. Bruce Weber described him as an absolute gym rat.
Summers, final 5 seconds. Pull up. Summers, good. So the leading scorer in the game, Jarvis Summers, with 12 first half points. That basket cuts the lead to 2 at halftime here in Manhattan.
And Jarvis Summers just trying to put the Rebels on his back, goes one-on-one. Excellent defense by the freshman Nigel Johnson. Showed his hands, got his hands up, but sometimes good offense beats good defense.
So it's halftime. K-State 31, Ole Miss 29. Now we'll go to Adnan Burke and Sean Farnham in the studio. The Land Rover halftime report.
So by the pass, they have 20 points in the paint. And then for K-State, their upperclassmen need to get going. Shane Southwell, Will Spradling. Spradling was 2 for 2, but had 2 fouls. Southwell coming off a career-high tying 19 points, only 1 for 7 in the first half.
So here we go, and it is loud, you can tell, inside Bramlage Coliseum. Great place for college hoops in Manhattan. The Wildcats up by 2, but playing defense as the second half gets started. Eric Millinghouse, the Summers, who led everybody in the first half with 12, he gets another 2.
And that's where they've been so effective. 2 penetrations there, and Summers able to turn the corner and get all the way to the rim. No shot blocker, not like last year where they had Jordan Henriquez to change the game in the paint for the Wildcats.
A very big difference with K-State this season. Gibson gets a touchdown low, draws a foul. He'll shoot free throws. So right away, another foul against Cox. That's number 3. Well, part of the story for Ole Miss, a very quiet night so far for Marshall Henderson.
And it's played out just like Andy Kennedy told us at shoot-around today. If Marshall Henderson is going and he hits 3 or 4 shots, they leave him in there longer. But if he misses 5 or 6, he has the luxury of pulling him out this year because Jarvis Summers and Derek Millinghouse have really asserted themselves as playmakers and scoring guys for this Rebels team.
Now, big news for Ole Miss that DeMarco Cox has to go right back to the bench with 3 fouls. He's been tremendous for them in the early season. Gibson makes 1 of 2. Wildcats up by 1.
And if I'm K-State, I want to keep feeding Thomas Gibson. He's a horse down low, nearly 12 points per game, and he has a tremendous advantage in the painted area.
Dwight Colby, the freshman, came in for Cox. We didn't see him in the first half. Offensive rebound by Aaron Jones. Here's Summers. Nice lob, but it's an offensive foul.
I love Thomas Gibson. He is affecting the game in the paint, not by blocking shots like Jordan Henriquez, but he spreads out, and he's now taking 3 charges in this game. And this is your 5-man, your center. Sliding over, understands help side defense. He's an upperclassman, doing an excellent job of leading K-State on the defensive end.
In a year where we're going to see far fewer charging calls in college hoops, he's got 3 in this game. Gibson with the foul. For the big man's coming to life.
Excellent coaching adjustment there by Bruce Weber. Now getting his big guy involved the last 2 plays. It worked the first time down. They go right back to it. The little rip screen action, and Thomas Gibson catches it, going to his strong hand, most importantly. He's a lefty, soft touch, draws the contact from Colby and able to go to the line now.
Completes the 3-point play. And I think clearly a point of emphasis for K-State in the locker room. Get Thomas Gibson more touches down low. Summers tried to slip the ball to Colby, couldn't do it. Marcus Foster, Spradling. Good shot fake, still had it blocked from behind anyway.
And here's just the action. Great job of pursuit by the Ole Miss Rebels there.
Another substitute, Sebastian Saiz, is going to come in the game. And Aaron Jones, at least for the moment, will come out. And his head coach has a word or 2 for Aaron Jones.
And Aaron Jones had a word or 2 for Andy Kennedy also. And they're still going at it right now on the bench.
So some tempers flaring up a little bit for Ole Miss, down by 4. Gibson, another touchdown low. Tapped his own miss. Ole Miss did save it in bounds. Here's Millinghouse. You might be able to hear Andy Kennedy in the background screaming, run. He wants his team to move.
And now that inside presence. Jones, Cox, both out of the game. Look for Millinghouse and Summers to try to take over.
He lobbed it for Colby. His shot was partially blocked. That's out of bounds, though, off of K-State.
And it wasn't about the defensive possession. It was more about the offensive possession before for Aaron Jones. He wanted him to run through the set a little bit more. And Andy Kennedy just letting Aaron Jones hear about it. But Jones will come back in this game, and he'll be ready to play.
New shot clock. No. Shot clock still at 11. And they reset it. Now they put it back. Summers catch, draws a foul. A savvy play, I think, with the freshman Foster defending.
Summers did a great job of just setting that up. He sets the back screen, the little pick-the-picker action, and then he comes off very tight to his screener, not giving any room for Foster to fight through.
Well, Jarvis Summers, the junior from Jackson, Mississippi, averaged about 9 a game this year. He's really stepped it up this season. Last year was not as much of a scorer. It's that first free throw. And Coach Kennedy told us when Marshall Henderson served that suspension in the first game of the year against Troy, Summers had 28 points, and it was almost like it was an awakening for Summers as to what he could do without Henderson on the floor. Now he's kept it going even with Marshall Henderson playing.
Well, last year he mostly played point guard, and Andy Kennedy said his natural disposition is to set up others and be so unselfish out there on the floor. But now they know with Henderson not starting games that it's on Summers' shoulders to be more aggressive and be that scorer from the wing.
Southwell 3 came up short, followed his own miss, and was fouled. That was not a very good sequence for the young freshman Sebastian Saiz. Sort of lost his man, gave up the open 3, then gave up the offensive rebound, then committed the foul.
Southwell, a senior, 6'7", 215 from Rice High School. Has really struggled shooting the ball here in the first month of the season. He went 0 for 9 from the three-point land in Puerto Rico. This is a young man that shot 43% from 3 last year. But the biggest difference is, and when I talked to Bruce Weber at practice yesterday, guys that were role players last year, like Southwell and Spradling, they've now become the star players on this team, the main guys on scouting reports. They're facing better defenders because Rodriguez and Magruder are no longer in the lineup, taking a lot of that load off of them.
Wild acrobatic shot, no good. Rebound K-State. Here's Foster on the attack, rejected out of bounds by Colby. Not out of bounds, but Ole Miss couldn't quite save it. And now, after the defensive play by
Colby, another long athlete, good timing there, coming from the weak side. And he did a good job of keeping that basketball in bounds and giving his Rebels teammates a chance to save it. And here comes Marshall Henderson. Let's see if he regrouped in the locker room. You know he'll be quick to shoot that basketball. He needs to try to find some type of rhythm.
Henderson was just 1 of 7 from the field. Aaron Jones, who had that heated exchange with his coach, also right back in the game.
And sometimes I like to see that, just a coach lighting a fire under Aaron Jones, getting him ready to play and contribute here in the second half.
It wouldn't do. That was good defense from Marshall Henderson. Foster went right through the defense. K-State with the tap ball keeps possession.
Spradling playing that point guard spot. He's actually been tremendous in taking care of the basketball. A 7-to-1 assist to turnover ratio.
Spradling passed up the 3. Southwell also passed up a potential look from the outside. So K-State running half-court offense here, but a little reluctant to shoot the ball. Now shot clock at 8. Owundu draws the whistle. So he'll be shooting free throws. ESPN's Journey to the Tourney, presented by Sonic, a season-long spotlight on games that will impact the tournament, and a real good one as a part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge. 3rd-ranked Kentucky, 20th-ranked Baylor. Friday, tomorrow, 10 Eastern on ESPN. Also live on Watch ESPN. Freshman Owundu hits the first of 2 free throws. Jones with 3 fouls. He comes out. Both of the big men for Ole Miss with 3 personals. See the rebound numbers for Owundu, 7 already in this game. K-State back up by 5. Matches the Wildcats' biggest lead in this game. Marshall Henderson gets off a shot, in and out, still cold from the field. 1 of 8 now for Henderson.
He's had 3 of them rim in and out. 2 in the first half and that one right there. So he's on target with his shots. Probably needs just a little bit more arc to soften it up.
Gibson swarmed down low, and it was blocked, saved in bounds by Ole Miss.
And if you notice the side of the floor that Henderson loves to be on, he loves the left side of the floor as he's pivoting into those shots.
7 blocks for the Rebels as a team. Henderson, a step back, contested, long 2, and a quick timeout for Ole Miss. Maybe that'll get Marshall Henderson going.
That was, and you see Marshall Henderson, he's not afraid to shoot that basketball. He missed his first one, but here the nice setup, the beautiful step back creates the space, the follow through, the knockdown for the Rebels.
Well, all of us at ESPN and, of course, people around the world, we're very sad today to hear of the death of Nelson Mandela, who passed away at the age of 95. Many have said, and I agree with them, that there may not have been another person in the last century who did more to better mankind than Mr. Mandela, who was a great lover of sports as well, impacted the sports world himself in his country of South Africa. So we join everyone around the world who is very sad today to hear of that news. College basketball here in Manhattan, Kansas. The missed three from Marcus Foster. Ole Miss has the ball down 3.
And Ole Miss got what they wanted out of that press. They didn't get the turnover, but they got a quick shot. They were just not able to get out in transition. Excellent job of recovery by the Wildcats.
Henderson hit the 2 last possession. Here's White, too strong with the jumper. Not a great look necessarily for Ladarius White.
For Kennedy, he'll live with that from Marshall Henderson, but Snoop White, not so much, only a 20% three-point shooter.
Spradling way off the mark. Good hustle, though, by DJ Johnson to track down the loose ball. Johnson's a big, strong kid under the basket. Southwell again misses. Tough shooting night for Shane Southwell.
Southwell spent a lot of time over Christmas break with assistant coach Chester Frazier, just trying to get his shot right, getting back to the things he did last year that made him successful. But tonight really struggling from the field.
Yeah, that has not paid dividends yet. He's 1 for 9. Here's Henderson. Spradling was right on top of him. Henderson. That's an offensive foul. He tried to draw the contact there, and he got the whistle. Henderson can't believe it. The fans on top of him. K-State has the 38-35 lead. For Jimmy V to donate. I was thinking about the spirit of Nelson Mandela today and the spirit of Jim Valvano trying to find a hope in the midst of hardship. And I think Jim Valvano and Nelson Mandela, although in their own very different ways, that same positive spirit impacted the world of sports and the world beyond. And we're just proud at ESPN to work with the V Foundation to do as much good work as they've done. Turnover right away from the Wildcats. Not a good pass. 11th of the game for Kansas State.
Well, that's not what you want to see out of a timeout. That's Marcus Foster's 5th turnover of the game.
Yeah, so as good as he can be on offense, that ball tipped out of bounds. Ole Miss keeps it. As good as Foster can be, that's turning it over a little too frequently.
And that's somewhat, as a freshman, you haven't seen pressure like this. The athletes that come from the SEC.
Spradling committed the foul. Henderson hit the shot. It doesn't count. Will Spradling had 2 fouls in the first half, so that'll be his 3rd. And he's going to come out of the game. It's not easy defending Henderson, even on a night where he's struggling to make shots. Henderson. Rebound. Saiz had it stripped away out of bounds.
And that's a good job defensively by K-State there. They're just making it tough. Tough catches on Henderson, tough finishes. Henderson not quite athletic enough to finish in the paint.
Yeah, he got knocked in the nose. The officials now hearing about it from the fans, and they show another replay. Henderson also. And they're talking, I think, about the shot clock here. Henderson got knocked in the nose. He's still hurting. Right down the lane again with the left hand. No good. Millinghouse comes away with it and scores.
Nice job by Millinghouse. Just right place, right time there. And then with the soft touch in the lane.
K-State against the pressure. Open shot. Johnson too strong. Owundu another rebound.
Owundu has been a man on the boards. His 7th rebound of the game. 2 of them on the offensive end.
Millinghouse had a good look, just didn't finish. Nigel Johnson was looking to run. Ole Miss got back on defense.
About the 3rd point-blank layup Millinghouse has missed.
Yeah, you got to finish those.
And those are game changers for Ole Miss because then it allows them to set up their pressure, which has really affected K-State.
Owundu came up with another loose ball after a block shot, draws a foul against the Rebels. K-State just feels a little quicker to the ball in this second half. 2 shots coming up for the freshman from Houston, Wesley Owundu. Just 1 of 5 from the field, but he's made a real impact in this game.
Hey Dave, sorry to interrupt. I'm listening to Andy Kennedy on the sideline right here. As we talked about Millinghouse's struggles to finish at the rim, Andy Kennedy gave him just a great piece of advice right now. He said, keep your eyes on the rim as you go in there. A lot of times when guys go in for a layup, they tend to either look at the defender or look at someone they might pass the basketball to and take their eyes off the target.
Wild miss, and then another foul committed by the Rebels. So the whistles are coming very quickly now. Fouls are piling up. K-State is already in the bonus, so that's going to mean 1-and-1 free throws for Shane Southwell. Look at the shooting numbers plummeting on both sides. Southwell's been responsible for some of that from the field. It's been a very tough game for him. Just 1 of 9 shooting.
He said early in the season, and talking to Coach Weber yesterday, that he was just trying to do too much. That both him and Spradling just put too much pressure on their own shoulders, that because they're seniors that they have to lead this team in scoring and rebounding. But Coach Weber just asking them to relax and play within the offense and play within themselves.
Summers back in the game. Summers scores again. What a night for Jarvis Summers.
Got away with a little bit of a hook there as he went into the lane, but still able to finish.
Some pressure. Johnson got knocked out.
And that's a bad foul.
Terrible.
They're going right back to the foul line. You were in no position, if you're Perez, to take a charge there. And now you're sending the Wildcats to the foul line.
He got the worst of that in every way. Hopefully he's okay.
And he's just trying to slide over, and there he just throws his hands out. He was in no position defensively. And here's Summers. There's the little hook on the hip of Foster to create just a little bit of separation to slow Foster up, and then he's able to finish.
And Perez is really hurting. We hope that Anthony Perez is okay. He's turned over. He's sort of rolling around. He got hit in the face, the chin. See if we can see. Yeah, right there. Wow.
Yeah, he took a headshot right to his face or chin or mouth area.
And he's a little wobbly walking back to the bench. I'm not sure we're going to see him again. He also committed his 4th personal foul, but that was like a punch to the jaw. That's a little scary. After the foul, Nigel Johnson at the free throw line. 9 team fouls against Ole Miss, so with still 12+ minutes to go in this game, from here on out, Kansas State is in the double bonus after this 1-and-1. The freshman Nigel Johnson misses the first.
K-State's not a great foul shooting team, only 65% on the year, but they're getting a lot of freebies here, and they will for these last 12 minutes. It can be a great way for them to extend the lead.
They've missed 7 of 19 free throws. Summers lost the ball out of bounds. So that's an Ole Miss turnover. This game has been ragged the last few minutes. It stayed close, though. K-State leads 41-39. All right, thank you, Adnan. Here we are in Manhattan, Kansas. Kansas State's home, and the Wildcats playing at home as part of this Big 12 SEC Challenge, leading Ole Miss by a bucket. It's been ragged play these last few minutes. It's been a very tough night for Marshall Henderson. Henderson of Ole Miss has not shot the ball well. 2 of 11 from the field. K-State has had a hard time themselves making shots.
Dave, and during the break, you and I talked about the fouls are piling up, especially for Ole Miss. 18 fouls for Ole Miss for the game, and now their big men, Jones, Cox, and Perez, all in foul trouble.
Yeah, huge advantage for K-State in the second half for the final 12 minutes or so. Double bonus from here on out for the Wildcats. 2 team fouls have been called against Kansas State.
And I know that's been a, kind of a point of contention this year about the fouls being called, hand checks, but actually I think every call tonight has actually been pretty good and been spot on.
Yeah, I agree. It's hard to argue with the whistles that we've heard, but it does make the game a little disjointed when there's so many fouls.
But Ole Miss is actually, they're fouling.
Yep, they are.
They're physically fouling the Wildcats.
And that's why you're not seeing Andy Kennedy go nuts on the sideline despite that big difference in fouls. Millinghouse just dribbled it right off his foot. So he's been a little sloppy in this game. The guy who has really stepped up his scoring this year. Goes to the basket, challenged by Gibson. He scored anyway.
And then what did Andy Kennedy tell him during the break? Keep your eyes on the rim when you go to the basket. Better job of focusing on his target there by Millinghouse and then able to finish.
That was good rabbit ears by you to pick that comment up. And that may well be what helped Millinghouse, who's missed, what, 3 layups in this game? Loose ball. Ole Miss grabs it. The arrow favors the Wildcats.
And here you see Millinghouse. He's best on attack mode. He's not a great three-point shooter. Here just uses the step-up screen, keeps his eye on the basket. You can see his head up to the rim and then uses a soft touch over the bigger Thomas Gibson.
Doing exactly what his head coach asked him to do.
Well, Andy Kennedy was a scorer, so he knows how to put that basketball in the hole.
Scored a lot of points. The Rebels head coach is from Mississippi, started his college career with Jim Valvano at NC State. Played on an ACC championship Wolfpack team. Johnson, no good. Gibson taps the rebound to himself. Wildcats have had an advantage on the boards.
Would have loved to see Gibson power up right there. He had the smaller Jarvis Summers take one power dribble and then go right up and try to finish.
Summers goes for the steal and gets it. Newby fouled in the open court. That was close. Owundu committed the foul. We'll just call it a normal foul.
And a smart foul by the freshman Owundu. Usually freshmen not that aware to try to stop the transition. Maybe just reach and flail their arms. But he saves maybe a layup right here.
So Owundu fouled Newby in the open court. Ole Miss did get it after another Wildcat turnover. Tie game. Rebels have a chance for the lead.
If I'm Ole Miss right now, I go to Jarvis Summers, being guarded by the freshman Marcus Foster.
That's exactly where they go. Summers knocked off balance. No whistle came. The outlet to Foster. One dribble. Foster blocked from behind. What a defensive play. I think that was Summers hustling back on defense.
Foster had a chance to give that basketball up to Owundu for a dunk. Once the defense committed to him, he should have dropped it off to his freshman partner.
Last lead for Ole Miss was 16-15. Basket here, and they get the lead. Millinghouse 3, way off the mark. Spradling grabs it, had it knocked away, grabs it again. Bruce Weber barking out instructions on the sideline for the offensive set. Southwell to Gibson, who fumbled it away. He had a layup.
That's a good pass. Perfect delivery to Gibson.
Millinghouse right down the lane. Tip up, no good. Jones, can he track it down? He did, and then threw it away. Owundu trailing. Timeout, Bruce Weber and K-State after the layup.
And Kansas State with a rare transition opportunity, able to come up with that basketball. Southwell, now he makes the right play. He draws the 2 defenders, and he gives it to Owundu in transition for the finish. And watch Jarvis Summers, excellent athlete, able to get up and block that ball from behind on the trail.
Well, that was the contrast you were talking about. The pass on one sequence, And the block on that one. Well, ESPN2's college basketball coverage features a pair of top teams on Saturday. Starts at 3:15 Eastern, Kansas, Colorado. And then, Miles, you'll be in Tucson for UNLV and Arizona, number 2 at the moment. They could well be the number 1 team in the country.
And McHale Center will be rocking. It's a tremendously balanced Arizona team that Sean Miller has. 5 guys in double figures against Duke last week. But McHale will be ready. But UNLV will pose a big threat. Ken Birch, Roscoe Smith, who's averaging 16 rebounds per game, leads the country. They'll match that front line of Arizona's.
One of the few teams that has the size on paper to match up with the Wildcats. Cox has been in foul trouble most of the game, draws a foul himself. Well, the reason the Wildcats have a chance to move up is Michigan State, part of that ACC Big Ten Challenge, lost at home to North Carolina last night. So the Spartans now 7-1. Arizona looks poised.
And I think actually that Tom Izzo, not happy that they lost, but he doesn't like being number 1 at this point in the season. And you know, his team didn't play tremendously well yesterday. North Carolina really firing on all cylinders last night.
And DeMarco Cox made 1 of 2. One-point lead for the Wildcats.
Let's see if they can get Foster a look. 9 points in the first half. Hasn't been able to get it going here in the second half.
He has a touch, but not a look. Looking to get the ball down low. Shot clock already under 10. And a window a long way from the basket. Bruce Weber has to burn another timeout with 5 on the shot clock. So that was not a particularly good offensive possession. It's not over yet. But now you got to draw up a play to try to get a look off in 5 seconds.
And now this gives a chance for Andy Kennedy to maybe switch defenses. Does Bruce Weber draw 2 different plays, a man and a zone play for his Wildcat team?
Now this game, part of the first ever Big 12 SEC Challenge. Some big games are coming up. Tomorrow night on ESPNU, you'll have South Carolina, Oklahoma State with Marcus Smart at 9:30 Eastern. And also tomorrow night on ESPN, that matchup we've already talked about, a good Baylor team, a very good Kentucky team going on the road. And how about Kansas, Florida on Tuesday, 7 Eastern on ESPN.
All great matchups. Also, storyline, the Harrison twins going back to their home state of Texas. I'm sure they'll have a lot of people in the stands there in Dallas.
Yeah, that game will be played at the big football stadium, AT&T Stadium in Arlington. So that'll be quite a scene with Kentucky coming to town.
And see Andy Kennedy switched it up from zone to man.
Shot clock winding down. Spradling blocked by Saiz. The outlet pass stolen away. Terrible pass.
And he didn't need to do it because either way it was going to be their possession, whether it was a shot clock violation or he gathers the basketball.
Throwing the ball to the big man running the floor in the middle of the court, just not a good idea.
Kansas State needs to get the ball inside.
And they did. Gibson scores.
Gibson's in much better shape this year. Lost 25 pounds in the off season. Really changed his diet. It's allowing him to play more minutes consecutively.
Ole Miss just has not been able to grab that lead. K-State has held on to it. Henderson in and out. Another one that rattles around. It doesn't go down for Marshall Henderson. That has happened over and over. White, bad pass down low, out of bounds, off of K-State. Ole Miss will get to keep it with 28 to shoot. When we come back to Manhattan, it's a little hostile at Bramlage Coliseum. K-State with the 3-point lead.
ESPN's exclusive presentation of college basketball is brought to you by Pizza Hut. Stuffing 3 cheeses into our crust since, well, we just did it. It's new.
All right, thanks very much. We're back here in Manhattan, where Ole Miss and Kansas State, part of the Big 12 SEC Challenge, coming down to the final 7:15, 45-42. Kansas State has held on to the lead for much of this game. Ole Miss will have the ball with 28 seconds to shoot. And still 7+ to go in this one, so a long way to go. Dave Fleming, Miles Simon, Marshall Henderson, very tough game for him. 2 of 12 shooting.
But the thing you don't want to do right now, Kansas State, You've really kept Henderson contained. Don't lose him in transition. Don't give him a look that can get him going.
Being chased by Spradling, who's played nice defense. Henderson down low to Cox, who draws the foul. So Henderson created for his teammate. DeMarco Cox will be at the line.
Nice job of penetration, turning that corner, getting into the painted area, and then drawing Gibson over and dropping it off to the big fella Cox.
During shoot-around, the Ole Miss people kept calling DeMarco Cox Bear. And I said, well, who's Bear? Pretty obvious. You look at him. He is a big, strong dude.
And Andy Kennedy said he's kind of the enforcer on this team. He said he's the guy that can kind of keep Marshall Henderson in line because no one's going to say anything back to the big fella.
Hey, glare a little bit at anybody, and I think that has an impact.
And he's really emerged this year. He's averaging 8 and 8. He's had 2 double-doubles. He's healthy. He had a foot injury last year, and he received a medical red shirt.
Against a Georgia Tech team that's got size down low. He had 15 points, 13 rebounds.
They haven't really missed a beat, losing Buckner and Murphy Holloway with Cox filling in.
He goes out, though, and K-State immediately goes down low to Gibson.
As they should.
White did not shoot the ball. White now dumps it down, and the dunk attempt was blocked by Gibson. Another block. Jones tried twice. Gibson wouldn't allow it. Now, Foster foul.
You love it. You love the energy. Thomas Gibson, he's kind of duped him early in the game because he took 3 charges. Now, Aaron Jones, who's a much better athlete than Gibson, but Gibson being a left-hander has an advantage there because the right-hander is bringing it into his strong hand, his dominant hand. He just doubled up his blocks on the season right there. He only had 2 coming into tonight. Now he has 4 on the year.
Foster, the first of 2, back to a 4-point lead. That's an inspirational kind of defensive effort. Thomas Gibson playing hard in this one. It gets very quiet at free throw time here. Foster missed the second, though. See how long Andy Kennedy leaves DeMarco Cox on the bench.
And let's see if Summer stays aggressive, even though he's playing the point guard spot.
Yeah, and they need offense from him. They are struggling on this end of the floor. It's not usual. Henderson was fouled. And that, I think, is the part of his game that is a little underappreciated. You see him launch all these wild threes from all over the court, but he will attack.
Well, the thing that he's realized, and he's a smart basketball player. He doesn't take the best shots all the time. He forces it a little bit. Doesn't always let the game come to him. But he knows that guys are closing out hard to him at the three-point line. And if he can put it on the floor, 1 or 2 dribbles, he can either draw defenders or create for himself.
Will Spradling checked out. Got a high five from his coach. Spradling gets a lot of credit for Henderson's night. He has played him very tough on defense. Henderson makes both free throws. Pressure for the Rebels. Back to a 2-point game.
And they haven't been able to get to the pressure because they haven't been able to put the basketball in the hole here in the second half.
Yeah, good point. Now they get a steal, but a whistle and a foul against Summers.
And that was the right call.
Yep.
He raked him across the arm. And those aren't the fouls you want to make. You have to realize that K-State's in the double bonus. You have nearly a 10 count. They're struggling getting the ball, and he reaches in across the body. Easy call for the official to make.
And I do give that guy, Andy Kennedy, some credit. The whistles have been very much against his team in terms of the sheer volume of them, but if the calls are correct, he has not showed a lot of displeasure on the sideline. Johnson misses the free throw. So the Wildcats have a chance in the double bonus, and they have been for a long time, to get offense at the line. Haven't taken full advantage of that. Good hands by Johnson, almost stole it away. Henderson working real hard to get a touch. There's a 3. Good!
He moves so well without the basketball. And that's not something that can really be taught. Henderson just knows how to free himself to get shots.
Offensive foul against Southwell. That time Summers didn't reach in. He moved his feet, but how about move of the feet, Marshall Henderson?
We watch him refreeze it. Freeze it right there. He goes from one side to the other, and now he's going to be able to just create some space to free himself up. Doesn't even get much of a screen, but he comes so hard off those screens. The stop and go action, very difficult for anyone to defend.
At 3 tied the game. He's going to shoot another one. Not this time. And the rebound to the Wildcats. He will continue to shoot the ball. That's a foul against Ole Miss. And Marshall Henderson's got to be careful. Big DeMarco Cox waiting to come back in the game. They miss him when he's on the bench. I think Keith Kimball showed a lot of patience as the official there, and now he's talking to Marshall Henderson. Another missed free throw for the Wildcats. What have they missed? 11 free throws now? Officially, they've missed 10. But one dude gets another one. Now they've missed 11.
And it's just those little things that can cost you a home victory. You can't knock in the freebies.
Summers. Henderson passed up the 3. Saiz does not want to shoot. Henderson didn't either. And he was lucky that he got the carry, then flipped the ball to Cox. Saiz, another chance.
And Henderson passed up maybe his most open look of the night, but it wasn't going to be a three-pointer, so it was almost as if he didn't want to shoot the basketball.
Well, that was, you don't see that very often, but in the end, it worked out for Ole Miss. They have their first lead since 16-15.
Andy Kennedy told us he just didn't want his team to be out-toughed or outworked, and they've been battling all night long to stay in this game.
Foster blocked. Ball caroms off of K-State out of bounds. That'll go as another block shot for Ole Miss. And that will be number 9 for the Rebels as a team. They're good at it. Here's Henderson. One dribble for Cox. Scores.
Wildcats fell asleep on the defensive end. They were trying to pressure up, but they lost Marshall Henderson. He pushes in transition. Now he's drawing at the crowd just one time there. But he makes the play for DeMarco Cox there on the other end. And here you see just kind of a scramble. Loose ball, he flips it behind his back. Cox not able to finish. Saiz able to tip that basketball in. And then look at K-State just asleep on the defensive end. Now it's a 3-on-2 advantage. Cox takes the power dribble, able to finish, and Marshall Henderson is pumped up. And they have the Rebels are up by 4.
And I think that last basket was an example of what you said a few moments ago. Marshall Henderson, for all the flair and the talent and the good shots, the bad shots, he is a smart basketball player. And he noticed that K-State was not getting back on defense. He called for the ball quickly and immediately got it to the bucket. And
he can do some more things than besides score that basketball. As you see, he's created for Cox a couple times by just getting in the paint.
Tomorrow, that matchup we've been talking about, maybe the headliner in the Big 12 SEC Challenge, Julius Randle in Kentucky on the big stage in Arlington against Baylor, 10 Eastern on ESPN. Big 12 SEC Challenge also available live on Watch ESPN. Bruce Weber's team has led for most of this game, certainly most of the second half, and now with 4:15 to go, they trail by 4.
Well, he really needs his upperclassmen to step up. Southwell has struggled from the field, maybe needs to find a way to get him a basket. Spradling hasn't done much since he got into foul trouble in the first half, and then Marcus Foster has been completely shut down here in the second half, only 1 point after having 9 in the first.
Ole Miss can set up the pressure here. Will Spradling back in the game, and I think they missed him when he was on the bench.
I'd love to see him go inside to Gibson. Gibson needs to post up. Cox with the foul trouble might relinquish a layup. But Gibson needs to be active behind this zone.
Give Cox credit. He has stuck on 3 personal fouls, not at 4 yet, but still, your point is a good one. Shot clock winding down again. Southwell just reluctant to shoot the ball. Gibson finally got position with the foul. Cox argues, but a chance for a 3-point play.
Well, Gibson was just extremely patient on this possession, hiding behind the zone. They ran the set. Look how big and low he posted up, draws the contact body to body, and they're right back in this basketball.
We come back with tonight's perfect play, brought to you by Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. So we're going to highlight the defense of Thomas Gibson.
Thomas Gibson has taken 3 charges in the charge. Much harder to get called your way this year, because if a guy's going in his upward motion, they're going to give you the block on that. But 3 times he takes it right to his chest. And then he says, not in the octagon of doom, Aaron Jones, get out of my house. Controlling the paint, Thomas Gibson on both ends of the floor for the Wildcats.
Now Bramlage came to life. Those defensive efforts from Gibson, they came to life again when he made the basket before the timeout, drew the foul. The free throw completes the 3-point play and cuts that Ole Miss lead down to 1. The foul was against Cox, his 4th of the game. Summers had the big first half and has been relatively quiet for most of this second half.
Well, watch the freshman, Owundu, having to chase around Marshall Henderson.
White passed up the 3, goes to the basket. The ball was tipped out of bounds. Ole Miss keeps it with 14 on the shot clock. Henderson has made just 1 3-point basket. That tied the game at 49. Henderson looking for some room. Found a tiny bit of room. Loose ball. Southwell has it.
Excellent defensive possession all around for the Wildcats. The contest, the deep shot, and then the block out.
Henderson's 3 for 15 from the field. K-State ball down 1.
Got to find a way to get Gibson the basketball again.
They waited a long time to get him a touch last possession, but they finally got him one. Now Foster, that's a blocking foul. That'll send Marcus Foster to the line. Summers whistle. So the Wildcats huddle up. Kansas State at the free throw line, 15 of 26. Plenty of foul trouble on the Ole Miss side. Ole Miss has made 11 of 16 free throws. Another miss for K-State.
Foster, one of the best on the team, 81% coming into today's game.
And he gets to the free throw line a lot. You like to see that from a freshman, Marcus Foster, who's going to score a lot of points for the Wildcats.
He's going to be a fine player in this league just through his ability to put the ball on the floor. He's been very solid defensively when he's had to guard Henderson.
Made the second, though, and the game is tied. Now whistle, and Foster's going to get called for the foul, trying to defend Summers.
Foster's just trying to fight through the pick there, but that's the freedom of movement call. They're not going to let you just run the guy out of the play.
Well, all these whistles are good examples of what college basketball is trying to do. You can't knock guys off balance if they're coming around a screen. You can't hold them. You got to give them room if you're going to try to call a charge. All those things that we've seen called as fouls, those are fouls. In and out. Still tied. Good pressure from Ole Miss. K-State calls a timeout.
And they're looking, and Andy Kennedy's right. He's saying, look at the shot clock. That's what the officials are supposed to go by this year. Not a 10 count, but it's at 25. But they're saying, I mean, it was literally probably tenths of a second that he was able to call that timeout before it clicked on to 25.
Well, let's look with the shot clock in place. When does Southwell ask for the timeout? And I think he got it right before it ticked down to 25. But that is a difference. They're not using a hand count in college hoops any longer. They're going by the shot clock. If it gets to 25, that's the 10-second violation.
But you know what I don't like about that rule? Now it resets. Like, I don't think you should get rewarded for calling a timeout. You're really penalizing the defense for playing well for 9 seconds. I believe you should only have 1 second to get it across.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree. Kansas State, by the way, that was their last timeout. So the last 2:30, that's a fairly big deal. Ole Miss still has 3 timeouts. And Bruce Weber has to make sure his team knows that. We have no timeouts left. Ole Miss settles back into his own look on defense. Shot clock down to 15. Spradling tried to get it down low. Good play. Foster to get the loose ball. And another whistle against the Rebels.
When Spradling's at the point guard spot, he just looks so hesitant to shoot the basketball. He got in the paint there. He could have shot a nice pull-up 15-footer. But when Javon Thomas, the freshman that's waiting, will be eligible to play and join this team on December 21st, it'll be a difference. Allow Spradling to play off that basketball.
Perfect that time for Marcus Foster. K-State has made a little push here, and they're back up by 1. It was a 4-point Ole Miss lead, 53-49. Kansas State has scored the last 5. And you see those free throw numbers. They're not pretty ordinarily.
Watch for some full court pressure by the Wildcats. If I'm Ole Miss, I want to get it in. I want to attack. They're best in transition.
Henderson looking to push. So the missed free throw sort of took away that opportunity. Andy Kennedy will use one of his final timeouts. And we're speaking, we've seen so many fouls in this game. Freedom of movement, the initiative in college hoops. Through December 4th, so through the games of yesterday, scoring per team, so those are per team numbers, up to 74 points a game from 68. The fouls are up. The free throw attempts are up. Field goal percentage has ticked up, though, so not just free throw shooting. Field goal percentage has gotten a little better with the whistles. And I think the whole idea of the freedom of movement initiative is offense was having too tough of a time. We need to get back to where college basketball was for so long.
Well, you really, and Dave, you and I have been calling games together last couple of years. When you go to shoot-arounds and practices the last couple of years, you heard coaches talking about mucking the game up, being physical, bumping cutters, almost putting hands on guys. But now you see when guy is guarding on the ball, his hands are up, he has to move his feet. And when I was taught to play basketball, when I'm guarding the basketball, I have to move my feet. I have to be able to change direction, have excellent lateral quickness. And that's the way it should be. You shouldn't be able to just put your hands on a guy and direct him to where you want him to go.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And I think the idea is, look, we're going to call the rules as they're written. Everybody in college hoops has to adjust. There will be an adjustment period. We're going through that now. And hopefully on the back end of that, the game will be a little different.
And I think teams are adjusting really, really quickly to it. I don't know about you, but in the games I've called this year, the games have actually been pretty fluid. This has probably been the most fouls I've seen called in a game of the ones I've done.
Final 2 minutes, 1-point game. Kansas State with the lead. Summers, who hasn't scored in a long while, just flings it, and they will save it from a backcourt violation. Henderson 3. Gibson rebound.
Henderson pretty much kind of the difference on the offensive end. If he's scoring, then Ole Miss is obviously a much better team, but he can't find the bottom of the hoop tonight.
1 of 11 from three-point range for Henderson, 3 of 16 overall. Kansas State with the ball, up by a point. Spradling into the corner. Foster hits a 3.
You don't need the force one here for the Rebels.
Couldn't even hear the whistle. Gibson put an extra foul on. There's a hand check foul that's been called.
And what a big shot here by Foster as he's coming through on the baseline side. I love that Spradling took the defense's attention to the middle of the floor. He throws back over his shoulder, Big shot from the freshman Marcus Foster.
He did well to make sure his feet were behind the line. Still only 9 team fouls against K-State. So it's a 1-and-1. He missed it. Tipped it in, though. What a tip by Aaron Jones. Wow.
The little things, free throws, free throw line block out. You have to step into your man, get him off the lane.
What a huge moment that was. K-State, instead of up 4 with the ball under a minute, up just 2. The one do, they just back off him and dare him to shoot. He won't do it.
We need to take up the slack there now to get the ball into Gibson.
Cox defending Gibson with the dribble attack, stripped away, loose ball, and off the glass, Southwell. He almost volleyballed it in. Henderson, 3.
Unbelievable. he's fearless.
He will not stop shooting. And for Ole Miss, that's a good thing after that made.
Not too many players in college basketball more confident than Marshall Henderson. And here you have to step into the lane if you're Shane Southwell. Aaron Jones just rides him underneath. Easy tip in. And then on the other end, the strip. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good as the ball bounces right into Southwell's hands. And he's able to get the soft touch and then the split. One of the more difficult shots that he's had to take tonight to make sure that his feet were behind the line, and he's keeping the Ole Miss Rebels alive here with 28.8 left to go.
You know, there was even, watching that replay, there was even a little contact when he made that 3. And that could have been a 4-point opportunity. Instead, Ole Miss is still down by 1. Shot clock is off, 28.8 seconds. So Ole Miss, how long can they try to create a turnover before you got a foul?
You go for a steal within the first 5 to 8 seconds because there's a lot of time left in a 1-point game. But right now, you feel confident in fouling if you're Ole Miss because Kansas State has shot free throws so poorly in this basketball game.
Ole Miss has 1 timeout. K-State does not have a timeout remaining. So that puts a little extra pressure to get the ball inbounds. Southwell is the inbound passer. Got to get it in. They get it into Foster along the baseline there.
Don't want to foul him.
Foster almost had it stripped away. At some point, you do have to get a foul on.
That's the guy you want to foul.
And they're not doing it. Spradling now gets fouled.
And Andy Kennedy is very upset. He's about 5 feet from me, and he told them right now, 1 or 25. He had told his guys in the timeout who to foul. Southwell and a Wundu are the 2 poorest foul shooters on the floor, and it was in a Wundu's hands for a few seconds, and they didn't get it done.
Yeah, it was in Southwell's hands first. Then it was in a Wundu. Instead, it's Spradling. He missed it, though, so Will Spradling doesn't connect. That does change things. And Kansas State fans cannot believe how many free throws have been missed in this game. 17 of 31 at the line. Spradling is a 72% free throw shooter. Makes a second, so that's big. It's a 2-point lead.
Millinghouse or Summers should attack all the way into the paint.
Well, they're using clock here.
Gotta
Down
go
to
now.
7. They're looking for Henderson. Henderson for the win. Air ball.
Dave, they didn't need it. You're only down 2. Now you're shooting a 28, 29-footer. Attack the paint. You have been dominating, beating guys off the bounce all night. Millinghouse, Summers, even Henderson. Get the tie, try to draw a foul, get to the line, extend this basketball game.
You make them both, and it is over. A tiny sliver of a chance left for Ole Miss. 1.1 seconds on the clock. And it was interesting. They went for the 3. And a very tough 3 at that. A Wundu. Got his own miss. And that is a fitting way for this game to come to an end. Big win for Bruce Weber and the Wildcats. Been an uneven start for Kansas State. They can be pleased with this one.
Well, this is something Kansas State can build on. A tough, gritty win on their home floor against a good Ole Miss Rebels team that's going to be highly competitive in the SEC.
First loss of the year for the Rebels as the team shake hands. Marshall Henderson showing some good sportsmanship. It was a tough night for him. 4 of 18 from the field. Final score, K-State 61, Ole Miss 58. For Miles Simon, Dave Fleming saying so long. Coming up next, Overman. Good night from Manhattan, Kansas.